Hello, and welcome to the FitnessGram Flex with special guest, Jill Camron, District Administrator, and FitnessGram Ambassador. Our host today is Breanna Palmero, Vice President of Operations with Greenlight Fitness. Let's get started.
Okay, awesome. Well, hello everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in for another one of our podcasts here with Greenlight Fitness and all things FitnessGram. I'm here with Jill Camron as coordinator of special projects, Hollister School District, and we are so pleased to have Jill here. She brings so many varying experiences, and Jill, just thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today and to share your perspective on all things FitnessGram and physical education, and would love to just start there. And if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background, your last few years. I know you've switched roles and have had a few different perspectives with FitnessGram and with what we refer to as the NFL Play 60 FitnessGram project. And I just want to take a second and introduce that project because I'm sure it'll get intertwined into our conversation here some. Jill is what's known as a champion for this project. And this project is put on through the Kenneth H. Cooper Institute in partnership with the NFL Foundation and many other very well-known organizations to bring programming to schools, and FitnessGram is used as the evaluation tool to monitor all of that programming. So I just wanted to briefly introduce that for those of you that may not be as familiar. And Jill, if you wouldn't mind, take it away.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm super excited. Like you mentioned with the NFL Play 60 project, I've been part of it for over 10 years. I've been able to bring the FitnessGram software to several districts that I've been at to assist with the physical educators and how they facilitate the physical fitness testing on an annual basis, and how they're communicating to students and parents on the outcomes and how to help their children improve, get in the healthy fitness zones. And it's just been such a learning experience and such a unique opportunity to be part of the project and work with all of our physical educators in Monterey County and San Benito County both, and to be able to work closely with them because I can't do it by myself. I really, engage with all of those teachers and, talk to them about what their needs are in their classes and equipment that they might need and training support. And yeah, it's been a journey, and I've just really enjoyed it and got to get to know people across this country with the project. And it's such a unique opportunity, and I don't take it for granted whatsoever. And was actually just recently brought back on as a co-champion with the 49ers. I work closely with Stephanie Zank, who's the champion for the Salinas Union High School District. And so her and I are back working together again between our two counties, because she's in Monterey County and I'm in San Benito County.
You touched on a few things there. One I want to just emphasize is the fact that you are mentioning that it's part of your responsibility, which is a great thing to recognize that you sometimes may have to reach out to teachers and hear what they need and how you can best support them. Do you feel like that's well received when you're reaching out? Do you feel like that's just a part of the gig, and teachers are so busy day to day that sometimes they might not know what to ask for? Or how does that typically play out?
It's different. It depends on the district that you might be working with, but generally, physical education teachers don't get a lot of attention in their districts. It really just depends. They've always embraced it. It's kind of different where I'm at right now, because typically you have physical educators for like your 7th and 9th grade classes. And then oftentimes with the lower grades, you have the classroom teachers, the multi-credentialed, who have to teach all the subjects, including physical education. Sometimes they'll have specialists who can come out and do those things for them and for PE, but that's kind of a unique situation where you might have those specialists. So I think it's usually well received. I usually try and connect with one or two PE teachers that are, like you said, boots on the ground in the classes, really talking to them about what are the needs of our teachers. Is it equipment? Is it trainings? what is making sure that we're checking all the boxes for the amount of minutes that we're teaching. So all the requirements, but also the attention they often don't get. Sometimes you have districts who do a kickoff at the beginning of the year for professional development. And often our physical educators, may not get the attention that they need. And so like even this year with the district I'm in, we actually had the Cooper Institute come in and do a training on the new grant that we're part of. And they were just so excited. So it was a neat opportunity to bring to them and get something that's in their field that they don't necessarily get all the time. But I think it's really important to be able to connect with somebody that's really in the field and to build that rapport with the teachers as you're going through all the just building those relationships with them.
Great. And one thing we were chatting about offline before we started actually recording was just a little bit about your experience and how you've had different approaches, how you've had to have different approaches because you've been in different positions, different school sizes, district sizes. So if you can speak to that a little bit, I know you were a principal and you were able to bring FitnessGram on board there, and then how you've had to work together with the boots on the ground to implement FitnessGram in other locations. I would love to just share a little bit more insight there.
Yeah, of course. The bigger district I was with was Salinas High School District, which I mentioned, working with Stephanie Zank, she being the teacher that I worked with. And that was a district with over 10 schools, over 13,000 kids. And that was the opportunity. I applied for the grant for the NFL Play 60. We got it. And I hadn't really started working with the physical educators there yet. But that was that was a great opportunity to start that. And so we started to, we would have monthly meetings on curriculum and what support that they needed. And then we brought in the grant and started to, what did they need to help support them with the annual testing. But what really moved the needle in that district was the partnership that Stephanie Zank and I had created. And she was the voice that could go back and talk to the teachers and then our teachers realizing you have an advocate at the district level who can then talk to the movers and shakers at the top about, can we establish a budget to purchase equipment to support state testing? Because everybody does state testing, but nobody was really looking at the state testing for physical education. So we built that in, and then it was like, what professional development? Can we send teachers to our state conference? Can we send them to the national conference? Can we build that in and get them excited about their field so that way they feel supported? And then things just they kind of fall into place at the school site. And then budgets being created for the administrators at the school sites, making sure that they're able to purchase what they need for sustainable equipment, new things that they want to bring in. So it kind of has a ripple effect. Mm-hmm. And to be able to, you have to have that advocate at the top. It's tough not to have somebody who's like, hey, wait a second, what are we doing with physical education? Because we're all looking at the whole child in our schools, and we all focus a lot on mental health. And sometimes we forget about, okay, well, we got to take care of our bodies too. And that helps with our mental health, is that exercise and having structured physical education programs that are supported, and having the equipment that the teachers need, and the support from their admin if there's any issues with discipline and whatnot. So that was a really great, unique experience at the Salinas High District with Stephanie, and her and I still work together to this day. And then you mentioned being a principal at Washington School District, very small, fraction of the size, 3 schools, less than 1,000 kids. I was a principal of 4th and 5th grade, and they hadn't had any training for the physical fitness testing or support there. So we looked at what did we need at the schools to help support that. We didn't have the grant, but I had the experience to be like, hey, the FitnessGram software is a nice tool. It creates the reports. The teachers can then have those conversations with students on, hey, where are you in the healthy zone? Sending those out to parents. So that it opened up that communication piece with both students and the parents. And it was great. And then we purchased equipment. So we made sure everybody was facilitating the test correctly. And I brought in Stephanie. She was great. She came in and did a training with the teachers. So it was great. It was a gap that needed to be filled, and they're continuing that work there at that district with using the software. And testing is a little bit different in California. We only report out on participation at this point. Things changed a little bit with COVID, but that doesn't mean a district still can't record the results and have those conversations with students and parents.
Well, that's awesome, Jill. It sounds like the main theme that I'm hearing you talk about is really advocacy. And it sounds like you're a very strong advocate for not only FitnessGram, but overall, wellness in students and making sure that physical education has an eye on it. Because as we were talking about, unfortunately, it's a theme we see time and time again, that either the physical education teachers are just not heard, or honestly, school districts don't really know even how to help raise that voice of the physical education department. So I'm curious if you had any tips or recommendations for others that may be saying, well, yeah, I want to get my students more involved in prioritizing fitness or prioritizing health and wellness. Where would you say would be, a good place to start for maybe some other of your peers and other districts similar?
I think if it's at the school level, I think you're having those regular meetings with your administration. And as administrators work together, a lot of schools do PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports. And everybody's always trying to look at how do we provide interventions to our students? How do we not suspend? How do we not do all these disciplinary things? How do we help kids before we get to that piece? And I think being an advocate where teachers are talking to their administrators, maybe there's a designated administrator that, works with, physical education, and they probably have a couple other subject areas that they have on their clipboard as well. But to be like, how do we work together? How do we support each other? Because a strong physical education program helps that school-wide with discipline. If kids know what the expectations are and they're clear, like, you're going to come every day, whether it's dressing out or not, or this is the expectation of, how we participate together, how we treat each other in class. I think that goes a long way. And I think sometimes schools lose sight of that, and administrators, they don't necessarily make the time to maybe that they need to put into their physical education program. But I think it pays off tenfold if those relationships are created between the teachers and the administrators. And then having a budget, you wouldn't think that would be a big deal, but having a budget for physical education, those are consumables that they're using, and that should just be a given. Like, what does that look like every year? Is it $500? Is it $1,000? Depending on the size of their programs. You would be amazed at how, when you create something that's that easy, that the teachers can depend on, and like, okay, we can order our things. We don't have to necessarily debate about it. We just get it. It's part of our program. That goes such a long way. And then you go up the chain. So then who's advocating at the top? Is that the director of curriculum who, hey, don't forget about physical education? Right? What are we providing as far as trainings for our teachers? Is that worked into the support staff under that director? Don't forget about PE. Are we doing something at a district level? Are we giving those teachers a release time to possibly talk together between grade levels or schools? At the Salinas Side District, they were starting middle school teachers were often talking with the high school teachers, like, okay, you're going to be getting our kids. How do we work together? Are our warm-ups similar, so we can create, the strength that the kids need for upper body strength? So when they're doing the testing. So it's things like that where you can kind of create that space for the teachers to work together, because they get competitive, with their physical fitness scores too. Like, hey, I see this middle school's having great scores. We're getting those kids into our school. How do we keep that momentum going? So our scores are great too, even though we're just doing participation right now. But back when we were reporting scores, it was getting a little competitive out there in a good way. But going back to just having that advocacy at the district level, I think is super key. But if that's not there, at least the teachers working with their admin and really building that relationship in a positive way, where the administration understands, like, that will have a big effect on their school if they're working together.
I was just about to say the working together aspect. It's definitely a best practice that I feel like needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Even you saying, teacher and admin, but also between the schools. That's actually an example. Really, the first time I've heard of that, of having middle schools, the high schools, or vice versa, working together to talk about what can we do so that students aren't completely scrambled when they transfer schools next year. There's already so much change. How can we make sure that they know that they're still in control of their fitness and their physical activity routines within physical education, and maybe seeing some familiarity there would be a helpful tool of that. So I think that's an awesome best practice. One thing you touched on that I typically look at as a barrier, we hear it from all districts, across the nation, is the word budget, of course. Unfortunately, we would love for physical education to have far more budgets than really we see across the nation. But it sounds like you're saying that sometimes it is as simple as just having an advocate recognize the need for a budget for physical education. Am I oversimplifying that, or how would you say that conversation is typically approached?
I do think it's that simple. I mean,
Okay.
I know budgets get tight, but I really think I know that as an administrator that, PE, I'm going to allocate $500 a year. It just depends on the size of your department. And then sometimes, administrators, and this is justified, will ask, okay, well, give me, put together, what is it that you need to replenish every year? So, you build a spreadsheet, and I have $500 worth of consumables, and this next year we want to, bring in a new game, a new unit, whatever they're wanting to do. And it's going to cost, to get off the ground is going to be another $500. So this year we're going to need 1,000. I think it's just part of that communication. I think as an administrator, you may not even quite understand exactly what does the P department even go through. They may not even understand. It's because a lot of it's consumables, basketballs, soccer balls, volleyballs. Those are all things that departments go through, and they may not understand the amount of money that goes into those things. So I do think, and a lot of times as an administrator, you come into those positions and you may have great budget experience, or you may have none. Mm-hmm. And it's all very new, and you could be juggling $100,000 budget or $1 million budget, depending on your school and all the money that comes into that district that gets down to the school sites. So it could be really, really tight. And but again, I think it comes back to that relationship and being able to say, okay, as small or as large as it is, we're working together. And exactly. I mean, acknowledging that you do need a budget. And I think it empowers people to then be able to say, at least we have something. And then you're also building capacity in those teachers to manage that budget on whatever that may be, right? So you're building capacity and building more skills in that. Maybe you have a department chair that oversees that budget and works with the secretary on creating POs and ordering that equipment. I mean, it sounds simple. I mean, to me,
actually, that's the simplest way I've heard of it. But I like that because that makes it seem more attainable. I mean, I feel like budget is this. It's almost like a curse word at this point, that from my perspective, in terms of just unfortunately the challenges that are just faced in the physical education world, and just not there's most of the time there's just not enough of a budget, or there is no budget, or the budget has been cut, and understandably so. I mean, school districts are facing a lot of adversity and a lot of challenges, but I think you and I are both very passionate about that physical education and physical fitness is just so crucial to a student's overall well-being that it's nice to hear that, it should just be as simple as identifying a set number that goes into it. And maybe sometimes that's just a little overcomplicated or a little overlooked at all levels, not only the admin level, but not realizing that maybe that's something a teacher can just advocate for and say, hey, even if you just throw me a few bucks every year, that would be better than nothing. So
right.
That's great.
Right. Yeah. And maybe the assistant principal hasn't had that background, or doesn't have, it just really depends on the scenario, for sure.
Of course. Well, Jill, I heard you mention a few times that California's shifted in terms of kind of what the overall state expectations are in terms of reporting. And I was just more so curious if you're comfortable talking about it. There's a constant conversation amongst BMI and us here as an organization, we still do believe in the science behind it, et cetera. I'm curious, and I'm also curious if that's how your different roles have looked at BMI or how you go about that conversation. Is that something you collect at all right now? Is that something your school districts or the districts you were part of leading do not collect? I'm just curious where that stands for you.
That's an interesting question. I'm like you, I think it's an important thing, that transparency and the communication with students and parents, and to be able to, even if we're not reporting it to the state, yeah. I still think it's an important piece in the overall fitness, and people, and even for kids to start understanding what that means as they're growing up. And they're difficult conversations. I mean, I've had parents when I was a teacher, and I had a few angry parents who were like, I can't believe you told my student they were not in the healthy fitness zone. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's my job. And I'm hoping you take that information and we learn and grow from it. They're tough conversations to have often with students and parents. But I do think I don't think we've been reporting here. I think we've just been doing the participation piece. I'm hoping that we'll just be able to, we'll just keep that internal, obviously. And I would love to see our kids let's go back to, height and weight and putting that information in and taking a look at it and starting those conversations with our families. I think at the Salinas High School District, they're doing the same, even though we're all reporting participation. It makes it, because we have those other tests that are part of that you need to know that those height and weight for the running. So there's pieces that we're not able to really look at that closely. And I recently reached out to the California Department of Education to see where they were with any movement. And then the Cooper Institute has some other options. They've got vertical leap, hand strength. What's the other one I'm thinking of? The plank, yes. So I reached out and said, are we thinking we're going to adopt those options? They came back and said, at this point, we don't have an update. So just continue with what we currently have. But I did want to check on that. That doesn't mean we can't do them. Yeah. It just means that they're not officially adopted as options for California. But it would be nice to see California kind of get back to at least so we can report the data and not just participation rate. But the BMI, I think that's an important piece. I think that, but it's conversations with your teachers. How do we have those conversations with parents and kids? And that's why I think having the reports, and they had FitnessGram in the past at Hollister School District. I don't have much information on how the reporting was done, but our conversations are like, I'd like to see the reports given out to the students. And I think those are important pieces. So that's where I'd like us to start and have those conversations with the teachers about the BMI and how comfortable they are and how they have those conversations with kids.
That's great. Also, thanks for sharing about the new items and your outreach. That's good to know of where California is currently standing with those. And again, things that you can use, but obviously if it's not as encouraged, it's a little bit of a barrier to implement new things. But with BMI, I really appreciate your perspective because as you know, since you've used FitnessGram, there's a lot of different ways to keep that confidential and ways to try and make that information as withheld as possible, but still being informative. And that's really the goal of FitnessGram, and the goal of these tests is just for information for you to know. Dr. Cooper, I always like to refer back to his saying of data drives decisions. And unfortunately, I feel like in physical education and health overall, there's really often not much data there that can speak to a student or speak to the current standings of one's health, especially at a young age. And it is such a simple metric and obviously a sensitive one, and definitely want to respect that by all means. But I think oftentimes it gets misconstrued of what the goal is for collecting that there. And the goal is just for that the student education is knowledge, and knowledge is power, and having that ability to make change should they see that there is a need for change. So I'm glad to hear that that's something that, even though I know there's been a lot of conversations either way, but glad to hear that that's still something that maybe won't be reported necessarily, but is still valued and looked at in a way that would be helpful to students. So thanks for sharing. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, to kind of shift gears, and I feel like we've already touched on this, but speaking of parents and policymakers and, state level, et cetera, just curious, what do you feel like maybe being missed or you wish was better understood about the value of physical education in general today, either to, that you wish the message was brought home more, or you wish, you're talking about advocacy at your level. Well, what do you feel like maybe you would like to advocate for at a larger level?
Well, I think when I come into, that's a tough question. I think as physical educators, we all want to be part of quality programs. And, you mentioned the data. And I think being able to start looking at our data internally. So if we have, moving forward this year and looking at using FitnessGram as that platform to internally kind of look at and maybe look at cohorts as we move along, like, are we improving in certain areas? I just think that's coming back to that whole child. And I think us really understanding that our physical health is an important piece to our mental health. So I think that's so important for people to understand and for us to really understand and to be able to message that. And I think the Hollister School District is very much about that. And I think when I came into the district, I had a conversation with my supervisor, and I said, my background is physical education, and I go, I'd really like to see if I can bring the FitnessGram here and that NFL Play 60 program. I just think that would really kind of re-energize our phys ed teachers and our district in that whole child approach. And without hesitation, she was like, of course. Oh my gosh, what do you need from me? Let me know what you need. So I think people understand the importance, but it's like, how do you move forward? How do districts, how do they prioritize their resources? How do they have somebody who has a little bit of background in health and physical education who can then connect with the teachers? And it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I came in here and some of these teachers don't really know me yet. So it's kind of a slow move and being able to build those relationships with them and then so they feel supported. And then I think the messaging will start to get out there, and we'll start looking deeper into the quality of their programs and when do they need to build their programs and make them stronger. And so I just think, I think again, coming back to that messaging of our physical and mental health are both important. And as a district and as a state and as a country, I think we all need to remember that they are both equally important. I think that answers the question.
1,000%, absolutely. And I wholeheartely agree. I'm a big believer in the connection. I personally, and I feel the connection when I'm more active myself. My mental is a lot in a better place. It just affects everything of life. So I feel like that's personally what keeps me going and me passionate about what the space we all live in and work in is like. I can live that. That's a testimony to how it affects my life. So why wouldn't I want that to affect others' lives and just kind of keep that passion? So Jill, I'll end with a little bit more of a fun question, and thank you again for your time. But I'm just curious, obviously, I know you're passionate in general, but I'm curious in terms of your own health and wellness, what you're most interested in. Do you have any certain like activities that you do to keep active, or if there's anything that you find fun to make fitness fun?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I'm like you. I've been involved in athletics and taking care of my health my whole life. So I was, a runner in college, and it just, I think having that early on, understanding like how important it is to take care of yourself, your body, and how it improves the quality of your life. And so when you do get older, so now I'm, in my 50s and feeling like, wow, taking care of myself has been so important. And so, I mean, I've been able to ride horses. I've done triathlons. I'm now, cycling with the local bike club in town. So it just allows you to just kind of pursue other paths because you've taken care of yourself and your body is, and obviously we have injuries and things that sometimes enable certain activities, and to be around people who have that same mindset, who like they want to take care of themselves and have a good time and build that community. And I think the other piece is the community, is that you're able to then connect and have support groups throughout your life of people that want to take care of themselves and embrace you to join them in, at the gym or outside the gym in different activities. So I just think it's overall super important, and we're the only ones who can take care of ourselves. So
Good point.
yeah, so I kind of want the quality. I think that just that to me says it all. There is I think the accountability is being responsible to take care of ourselves.
That's great. And that keyword community too. I just feel like that has an impact on our overall well-being too. And it's such a good aspect of physical health that sometimes I think gets overlooked as well. So, well, thank you so much, Jill. I want to say, is there anything else you wanted to chat or mention, or that I didn't ask you about that you're absolutely wanting to shout from the rooftops before we close?
Just thank you again for the opportunity. I mean, this is such a unique experience. Again, to be part of the NFL Play 60 grant, meeting you in the summer, to be able to then be part of this group to look at the software and the messaging. And again, I absolutely just cherish the opportunities that I've had to be part of this, to all these different groups regarding fitness and messaging in our education. So thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
Well, thank you, Jill. It's advocates like you and movers and shakers like you that actually move the needle in physical education and fitness. And we're so thankful. And thank you again for your time. And we really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.